Welcome back, hockey fans, to Game Over Toronto. My name is Lauren Williamson. On the other hand side of the screen, we have Fouad Suleiman on a Saturday night win over the San Jose Sharks, 4-1, being led by impending contract extension contender William Nylander. We are going to talk all about that impending contract. We are going to talk about the game. We are going to take your questions and all of that here on Game Over tonight. Fouad, considering how the California road trip went last year, are you as pleasantly surprised as I am about how Jones has played and how well the Leafs have played?
Wow, considering that the California road trip was like that was that was like the almost impending doom of the team, if I recall correctly, that October when like Anaheim game, Mitch Marner ran down the tunnel. It was a whole thing, and it was a disaster. I'm impressed that they didn't play down, they didn't lose to the worst team in the league, because that shouldn't be impressive, but that is kind of what we're accustomed to. I just saw the Raptors a week ago break a 28 game losing streak from the worst team of all time. So I was expecting something like that for the Leafs, but they played up to their competition. And yes, that's your final question. Martin Jones is the Vezina Trophy leader. No, I'm just kidding. But he has been fantastic. I can't even say enough things about Marty Jones.
It has definitely been a nice change of pace to how I think we were all kind of expecting the California road to go this year. Even tonight, I tweeted out, kind of tongue-in-cheek fashion, that the Sharks were on a 10-game losing streak. The Leafs were trying to sweep California. What could possibly go wrong? And more than one person commented saying I was going to jinx it. So I'm glad to report that the Leafs did not, in fact, drop the ball. They do get all 6 points in California, crushing the Anaheim Ducks, the Los Angeles Kings, as well as the San Jose Sharks. And I'm just so pleased that we don't have to talk about another terrible California road trip. Like, don't get me wrong, it was definitely a storyline last year, but I'm glad that we can talk about the Leafs actually playing well against teams that they should play well against, like you said. Historically, the Leafs in the last couple of years have not played well against teams that they should completely pummel. And tonight, you could even argue that the score should have been more like 7 or 8-1 with the number of posts that they hit throughout the game.
Ping! Yeah. Literally, it was like a casino. It was like Casino-Rama up in there. Just bing, bing, bing. That's all I heard.
Yeah, legendary goaltender, red goaltender net. Absolutely. And the Leafs got off to a really good start, getting a goal in every period, 2 in the third. A power play goal, considering our power play has not been producing well. For my first stream on Game Over Toronto this season, I'm pretty pleased, man. I can't lie. Like, it's funny, right before we went live, Fouad was actually saying, it seems like there's not a lot to talk about. And it was kind of like not an overly exciting game. Like, the Leafs pretty much controlled the play from puck drop, which was a breath of fresh air. The Leafs holding the San Jose Sharks to essentially 3 shots on goal in the first period, and while getting 18 is exactly the kind of dominant performance that we all come to hope that the Leafs can do. It's just that they've had trouble actually producing on nights like that.
Yeah, totally. And you said about the 5-on, the power play, that was probably the most lackadaisical. When it was a 5-on-3, I'm like, that is the most practice goal I'm ever going to see. And I kind of have to feel bad for Dennis Hildeby, because he's probably looking and saying, there's 3 shots in the first period. If I'm not getting in this game, when am I going to get in? Like, he's just looking there like, come on, are you serious? But Martin Jones did earn that. That was the easiest first period he's probably ever played in his life. And yeah, that first goal it would look so much like a practice goal, the way, especially because Marner got the one-timer, and it was just, that's weird, but it just looked like you'd see them if you're at the Ford Center, whatever it's called now, Performance Center.
The SAP Center. Oh yeah, the Ford Performance Center, the practice facility. No, absolutely.
Yeah, practice facility. Yeah, I was dissing the Sharks.
I get you. I understand. Yeah. I'm actually surprised that the Leafs didn't score earlier in the game. It took all the way until, 5 minutes was left in the first for them to finally register a goal. But William Nylander and John Tavares looking really hot right out of the start. Poppy had a chance from Marner, but he just couldn't finish it as well right at the beginning. Blackwood was definitely being tested early on. The shots were 10-2, 10 minutes in. It really felt like a bit of a firing squad. And I was surprised that Blackwood was doing as well as he was. I mean, the Sharks were doing a really good job of getting in the lanes. They were blocking a lot of shots for tonight. They were definitely trying to help out their goaltender as much as possible. But like you said, Mitch Marner gets his 15th of the season on a one-timer from Riley with 4:38 to go in the first period on the power play. And it was, it was the 5-on-3. It's what, their second of the season? Is that correct?
Oh yeah, I guess so. Didn't they go a long time without one? They got this is the second one. That's a really strange stat.
And then last year it took until what, like the 70th game of the season or something for them to get a 5-on-3, which is just ridiculous. But Mitch Marner doing something that we don't really expect to come from him, finishing a beautiful one-timer with a bit of a fist pop Selly to finish. A minute 30 left on the power play, but they couldn't finish on the second half of that 5-on-3. Yarncrook was denied with a minute to go. There was a really good opportunity for him where Liljegren had a really good shot from the point. Yarncrook gets the opportunity, tries to finish it backhand, but Mackenzie Blackwood doing very well for the Sharks. Like I said, very easily could have been 3 or 4-0 at the end of the first period. And Knies and Marner 16 couldn't bury. And I know that Knies probably would have that shot back to finish off the first period with 30 seconds to go. Definitely a shot where, you hope that in the future Matthew Knies starts to take that shot.
I feel like he almost surprised himself the way that he completely just undressed the entire team. It was almost reminiscent of his first career goal, which was the best first career goal I've seen in a long time, at least.
Oh, yeah.
That one, like the Florida Panthers, when he was like between the legs, 360, like it was I kind of forgot that because he's such a bruising force, Matthew Knies, that you kind of forget he has this kind of stick work and this kind of touch. And I feel like he outsmarted himself. He was by himself and he tried to pass it off. But, that's something that will come with age, but he's a player that sometimes I'm like, whoa, like he just jumps out the screen. I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. At least have Matthew Knies. He's quite the player.
He is, and the more he plays, the more I'm excited for the fact that he's so young. Like, considering this is his first full season with the Leafs, he got into a fistful of games at the end of last year, but really seeing how much he's developing so quickly and how quickly he's gaining that kind of chemistry with Austin Matthews, and regardless of who plays on the right wing, it doesn't really seem to matter. Matthew Knies is probably the best person to go into the corners. I don't know if anybody on the Leafs loves going into the corners as much as Matthew Knies does. It seems like he relishes an opportunity to go into the corners against two guys because he's probably bigger than those two guys and he can outwork both of them. And it's just so good to see. As soon as the puck goes into the corner, when that line is out, you know who's going after it. It's not Mitch Marner. It might be Austin Matthews, but chances are it's going to be the cannonball of Matthew Knies coming in and just wrecking shop and getting it to the big guys. And the more time he spends on that line, the better. I can't believe we have literally a league min 20-year-old playing on our top line, and there's no question that that's where he belongs.
Yeah, and considering the news that we're going to get to, that we heard, we've been hearing all week about contracts and such, he's the perfect player you put there, considering his style of play, his age, and the team controlling contract. That may be one of the top 3 moves Dubas made was drafting this kid. Yeah, because it changes the whole puzzle, the whole dynamic, how you fit these guys in, because now your forwards are set. Yeah, I mean, we will get into the contract in a second. All you got to do is work on the back end. But now that he got all these forwards that look to be ready, even this year or next year, now you feel more comfortable extending a William Nylander than you would have, last year even.
Absolutely, and there's no question that Matthew Knies' spot is the first line left wing. There's no longer any swap outs. The only really variables happening in the top 6 is Mitch Marner and William Nylander, flip-flopping back and forth between the first line and the second line. But at this point, they're both first lines because they're both getting paid like first lines. And it's such a breath of fresh air to see, to know that at least one of Matthew's partners is going to be Matthew Knies for the foreseeable future. Like, even at the end of this contract, Matthew Knies is going to be able to re-sign as an RFA, and I imagine that it's going to be a very long extension, especially with what we're expecting to come in the next few days with William Nylander as well. I imagine that Matthew Knies doesn't want to go anywhere, and there are a lot of people, a lot of very smart hockey people, not explicitly Leaf fans, this is not just bias, that say that if that draft where Matthew Knies was drafted happens again, he probably goes in the top 15, and I don't disagree. Like, especially with how well he's been able to step into such an important role, an important line, like arguably one of the toughest positions to probably play as left winger of one of the best centers in the entire league, and he's come in as an actual, like, for all intents and purposes, child, and it has been able to flourish, and because of that, the top line is flourishing, and it's just like, oh my god, like, just hook it up to my veins. It's so good to see. Oh, I can't say enough.
He was in the 21 draft, right? He was in the 2021 draft?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. That's a weird. That was like the weird COVID times where nobody knew who was who, like where who would go. So I guess they took advantage of that mad scramble that was development that year. So a good on Kyle Dubas. Thank you again thank you again in absentia.
Yes, absolutely. But let's get back to tonight's game. They finished the first period, like I said, shots 18-3 for Toronto. It really felt, the ice felt very tilted, even though the score was only 1-0. The Austin Matthews wraparound effort at 3 minutes and 15 seconds in, it feels like this year he hasn't been able to get as many wraparounds in the net. I don't know why. I don't know if the defenders are just doing a better job, but it feels like the last couple of years Matthews was getting more wraparound chances. Maybe that's just me. I don't know.
Yeah, I feel like he's got so much from everywhere else, just cannonballing everything from
everywhere,
his spots. Yeah, so it's like I feel like maybe he should go with what works. I find the wraparound is like, it's not like it's one of those dying arts. I use the wraparound a lot when you're playing like NHL 02.
Yeah,
that was kind of like one of those glitches, right? But it's not one that it's not one you see a lot that often anymore. But I like. I mean, you can't really complain about Austin Matthews' game. I wish he got another one tonight, just because I was just waiting for it. I'm like, this is a game you get 3 in, but
I mean, he hit the post more than once, right? Yes. If we replayed that game 100 times, I bet the score is very different. But
6-1.
I digress. It took the Sharks with 5 minutes to go to get past their 5th shot of the game. The Leafs did a really good job of limiting the Sharks' chances. They really did a good job of keeping them to the outside, getting in the lane. Even though there was a couple of times where the Sharks were able to hem the Leafs in, they never looked particularly dangerous. It didn't feel like there was a real offensive threat coming. Brody did a really good job of stopping Eklund right before the end of the period, and then Järnkrok from Liljegren and Holmberg finally getting another point. 37 seconds to go in the second. Jones keeping it 2-0 to go into the second intermission. And again, it kind of just felt inevitable, like the Leafs were just kind of army crawling towards the finish line at this point of the game.
Yeah, I was almost waiting. Like at that point, I was like, okay, there we go. Let's relax here, because I was so certain the Sharks were going to tie it at that point, because it was like the luck was tilting. Yeah, they tilted the ice. They doubled up on them in zone time, which I was like, whoa. Like, you don't see that even when it's like a team. Even when a team's beating a team pretty badly, the zone time is not that tilted. I'm like, whoa. Mm-hmm. Like, I couldn't believe that.
Or the shots, usually.
The shots, yeah. I mean, the shots were like the last game. They were like doubled up almost. But, yeah, it was a sigh of relief. A big unsung hero there was Max Domi winning that icing there. Like, he was all over the ice in that play. I mean, Max Domi giveth and Max Domi taketh away sometimes. And, like, at least one game he has like a bad clearing attempt that ends up at the back of the net. But that's why you got him at $3 million and not like $9 million, right? Like, that's why he's not a number one center.
100%.
That's why he's on the team. So, you give and take with Max Domi.
Max Domi beating that icing is the reason that the Leafs are able to get up 2-0, because at that point when he beats the icing, the puck doesn't leave the zone again until Järnkrok scores the goal. So definitely an important play, even though he does, make a couple of mistakes every game. Tonight definitely is an important factor, even though he doesn't get a point on that Järnkrok goal. He is the reason that it happens, and I'm a little bit surprised he didn't get credited with it, but There was more than enough contributors to that goal, but definitely a good game for him. And then going into the second period, the shots were again 26-10. The Sharks did a better job in the second period of limiting the Leafs' chances, but they were still getting more chances than they could produce. Thomas Hertl hits the post right to start the period. I actually didn't take a lot of notes in the third because it felt kind of draggy. Willie got in alone a couple times. McMahon, Grigor, Kampfline was buzzing, especially in the third period. It really feels like the more time that line gets together, the better that they play. Even though, McMahon, that line has been kind of everywhere, right? Like, I don't think any of us looked at that line at the beginning of the season and thought that it was going to produce. And even though it has produced like sort of intermittently in and out of the season so far, they're really good on the puck, and they're really good at getting zone time. They're really good at applying pressure. And even though they don't always get opportunities, I can't believe how much of a game changer Noah Gregor has been. Like, I think that if San Jose is in a better spot, then they probably re-sign him because he's so fast and he's done a really good job of like implanting himself and sort of cementing himself onto that line.
Yeah, it's almost like you're allowed to have a fourth line that does things on the offensive end. Like it's kind of a breath of fresh air. It's nice to see, like, fourth lines in the past for the Leafs have always been like this. They must be grinders and they must not be able to shoot the puck within any range. But Bobby McMahon, I love the way he plays. You could slot him in the third line and you wouldn't even notice like how like he's always in the mix and he's always getting chances too. And that's the thing. You got four lines now that are rolling that you have to kind of pay attention to. Mm-hmm. And that wasn't the case, like in the past where, especially even this season where you had Ryan Reeves there, where, now you have four lines that are actually functional, like the teams actually have to pay attention to, right?
Yeah. It doesn't feel like our fourth line is just name of guy here. Like all you could even at times tonight they were swapping the third and fourth lines and it works both ways. Like, I don't know if that's what the lines look like going into the playoffs. Like, I imagine at some point they make some kind of adjustment. And it definitely sounds like what's happening with Pontus Holmberg is that they're trying to get him some ice time to figure out what to do with him, because they know, as it's well reported, they know who Nick Robertson is. They know what he's sort of capable at this point, and they want to see if Pontus Holmberg is going to compete for that same position and if it's going to be the same level of compete that Nick Robertson has. Like, don't get me wrong, Nick has struggled through his career because of so many injuries, but a couple games ago, he gets like back-to-back goals and back-to-back games, and it really seems like he was starting to find his footing. And I imagine that part of the reason that they're doing this now with Pontus Holmberg is because if they don't think that he's going to be a better solution than Nick Robertson, then maybe they're trying to see if there's any, we still got the rest of the game to talk about, but if there's any, if he could be part of any trade fodder moving forward, you know what I mean? Do you get that same vibe about like why they're scratching Nick Robertson continuously and putting in Holmberg?
Yeah, I was wondering that too. Like, I was actually kind of bringing that up in the last stream. I'm like, he wasn't playing terribly. Like, he had 6 points in 10 games up until the point where he was scratched. So it's kind of like,
I don't think it's because he was playing badly. I think it genuinely is because they're trying to figure out what to do with Holmberg.
Perhaps, yeah. I mean, it maybe. I think you're right about the trade chip. I can kind of see that too, because stylistically it's like there's already kind of guys that already play his role a lot on the team. Like, it's tough to have him on the third line all the time now, and it's like he's never gonna crack the top 6 unless you have an injury, and even then, I don't know if you want that to happen.
Yeah.
So he can flourish. I honestly think like it's gonna hurt to trade him, so you better get some, because he's gonna score 30 goals at some point.
Who, Nick Robertson or Pontus Holmberg?
Robertson.
Yes.
Yeah. I think at some point he's gonna crack 30 goals. Will you care if you get some kind of good defenseman back? Probably not. But this is kind of the thing you've seen in the past where you don't want to give up these forward prospects too early, especially with the Leafs. So
yeah,
I'm interested to see.
I mean, definitely, because if you look back at like Alexander Barabanov, like when he was traded, he started producing at crazy levels for San Jose, right? And it was the same thing with Ivan Barbashev down on Vegas. Like, he's now a Stanley Cup winner. Like, look at Mason Marchment. Like, all of these players that the Leafs have sort of traded and didn't give good opportunities to, or the team wasn't good enough when they were on it. for the most part, all of those players have gone on to flourish. Look at Trevor Moore the other night against
Yes.
LA. Like, he's now leading the Kings as their leading goal scorer, not Pierre-Luc Dubois. How funny is that, right? But getting back to the game, William Nylander getting his 20th of the season on a beautiful pass from Tyler Bertuzzi. Benoit getting an assist on that. Benoit has had a hell of a last couple games, man. Like, especially in the California road trip. I don't know if it's just being back in the sun or what, but he has looked so good on this road trip and is making a serious argument for himself to be re-signed before the end of the year. That's for sure. So 10:26 to go. They go up 3-0. Calle Jarnkrok whistled it down, and then Michael Granlund, unfortunately, breaks the shutout for Martin Jones, getting the first goal against the Leafs at 5-on-5. I believe it's the second goal in 4 games or something that the Leafs have allowed 5-on-5. And then William Nylander also getting his 21st to finish it off. 3:32 to go, and they ice it. The Leafs win 4-1 over San Jose to head home. They're going to have a couple days off now. They're off until Tuesday, I believe, where they're going to play the Sharks again. It will be interesting to see at that point if Hildeby does get the start. I mean, you got to hand it to Martin Jones, man. Like, that guy has played as good as any goalie has for the Leafs in the last, 3 years. Martin Jones on this stretch has been undeniable.
It's wild. I love, like, it's one of those stories where it's my favorite type of story where it's like, if you told anybody that the starting goalie that would won you a first round series would be like on a beach somewhere, while Martin Jones, a guy that people like was waiver fodder, would be the guy carrying the team.
He passed through waivers.
You can't trust goaltending. That's the thing with goaltending. It's like, I feel like it's a cautionary tale with GMs now, where it's like people will look and say, wow, the Leafs made a good choice not packing up the Brinks truck for Ilya Samsonov, because these goalies, it's like 1 year they're amazing. Next year, it's like, what happened?
Yep.
Like clockwork, it always happens. It's become such a hilarious trend to where if you sign a goalie to like a max or like a big, like a Carey Price contract, like you are playing with fire and kerosene at that point, right?
Yeah, you're playing with, if you play Red Dead Redemption, you're playing with volatile dynamite, for sure.
Oh, yes, of course. Love Red Dead.
It was, it's funny, eh? Like, we've been talking about the fact that the Leafs don't need, like, a world beater. They just need, like, basically average goaltending. And like you said, it's been a storied tale across the league of, if you sign your goalies to long contracts, at some point they're going to have a bad season. And that has been up and down basically across the league, with very few exceptions. Like, even Igor Shesterkin this year hasn't been what he has been in past years. Thatcher Demko decided that he is channeling actual Vezina. Even Dan Vladar over in Calgary, who was, prompted to be the next Joseph Woll for all intents and purposes for Leafs fans. Like, he struggled this season too, and it just seems like year in and year out, a goaltender that was good last year might not necessarily be as good as they have been this year, right? And it doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it. Like, even last year, like Sergei Bobrovsky, passed through waivers, $10 million, and then goes to the playoffs and is like a world beater. It's as consistent as cottage cheese. You know what I mean? Like, what you get one day, you might not get the next day, and who knows? Like, look at Peter Mrazek, man. In Chicago, he's got like a .916 save percentage, and now half the team is on LTIR, so that might go down the drain. But like, there were people that were talking about, oh, we should bring Peter Mrazek back because of how well he played. And it's like, how short people's memories is when it comes to goaltending. Because again, I don't blame them, because to some degree, what you get today is going to be different than what you might get on the same date next year with the same goalie. There doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason to it. And I'm more willing to put money down on like players getting shots on specific games than betting on goaltending, because it's just ridiculous.
Yeah. It's pretty funny that you said, the Peter Mrazek thing. I did not even notice. I didn't know that until somebody pointed me out. I'm like, wow, 916. I'm like,
yeah, man.
Absolutely not, though. Do not break it back, because that is going to change as soon as he hits Toronto.
Yep.
Do you think Hildeby will be in on Tuesday? Because that's they have to put him in at some point. And like when he's on, and like I swear, like I said this to Harnish last game. Every time they show him on the bench, I'm like, when did the Leafs bring back Garrett Sparks? Because he looks exactly like Garrett Sparks. Same number, same haircut. I'm like,
Yeah.
hopefully not the same game. But like, I'm like, whoa, I remember that dude.
You want to know the crazy thing is that like we don't know when Joseph Woll is coming back. Like,
No.
I looked this up on Sportsnet the other day. Like, I just wanted to check up on see like all the players that we have on IR. And weirdly enough, I saved it to my phone, unfortunately. But if you go to the Sportsnet website, Joseph Woll is predicted to return January 8th, which is Tuesday. But we know that that's not correct, but it's also basically been a month since he got hurt. So there's a chance that he starts playing games before the end of the month if we cross our fingers and hope to all the fairies. But, going into next week, we're looking at a Tuesday game against the Sharks, Thursday against the Islanders. We get a back-to-back on Saturday, Sunday, Abs, and then the Red Wings next Saturday, and then the Red Wings on the respective Sunday. So you have to imagine that one of those games, at least one of those games in the next couple of days is taken by Hildeby, and then maybe he gets another half of the back-to-back. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Hildeby gets the Tuesday start, and then you play Martin Jones Thursday and Saturday, and then you get Hildeby against the Red Wings on the Sunday? Like, does that sound like a plan?
Probably. I mean, yeah, the January 8th that's an interesting one. Probably some sort of like, they probably have some sort of algorithm that's like,
I think that's like the earliest he can return from being put on LTIR, right? I think that's probably what it is. Yeah, high ankle sprain. And
that's always a weird one.
Yeah, but Timothy Liljegren had that same injury earlier this year, and he was back within 6 weeks. And Joseph Woll is younger than him, and apparently notoriously stretchier.
I guess goaltending probably is a different,
Allegedly.
it's probably a different timeline with injuries, just the way they use their limbs.
Yeah, that's a good point.
He's standing with his legs like at 45-degree angles, so I guess maybe that's different. This is me speculating without any type of biology.
That's okay.
Degree.
That's what we're here for. Fouad,
I have a sports biology degree from watching sports.
That's right. Watching sport university.
And an MCL is.
That's right. So I imagine Curtis Joseph in the chat. I wish it was real Curtis Joseph, but I'll take you, Curtis.
Every time I'm like, is that the real Curtis Joseph?
No,
like,
I don't think. I mean, if it is, I'm like, welcome, sir.
His name could be Curtis Joseph. Though,
he actually he makes a really good point. Vegas won the cup with Aiden Hill. I'm doing it for the fun. 888. Marty has never won, but give him days off. I agree. I think Martin Jones has played lights out hockey. Don't fuck it up. In the words of RuPaul, don't fuck it up. Just leave it and give him a game off. Like, you just beat San Jose. They're now on an 11-game losing streak. You're at home. You get a couple days off. Like, if there was ever a game to try Dennis Hildeby, come on.
People want to see new goalies. It's a shiny new choice.
We all want to see it. I don't know if I don't think it's just because, like, I do genuinely think it's because we're a little bit demented and we want to see what it could be. Even if it means that they totally get shelled and maybe they lose. There's a sick part of us that wants so badly to have another homegrown goaltender. Because wouldn't it be great if, like, going into next season, we had a couple of young goalies that we knew were going to be with us for a long time that were really good? Wouldn't that?
Yeah, I have a choice of them. That the first time
Wouldn't that be great?
You have that since Justin Pogge and Tuukka Rask, right?
Yeah.
Like that's kind of the situation.
Yeah.
Pick the right one though.
Yep. Yep. Let's not trade Hildeby this time, shall we? So let's talk about the $11.5 million elephant in the room. Elliot Friedman reporting on the second intermission that the Leafs and William Nylander's party are nearing in on a deal could be happening as early as Monday for an 8-year extension and $11.5 million AAV. Fouad, is that a thumbs up or a thumbs down? Just without slicing it any other way.
Well, okay. As of now, it's a thumbs up because it's the only real thing they could have done at this point. Because look, I was an advocate after the playoff, like second round. I'm like, okay, something's got to like functionally change with the core. Now, I said that, and I've stood on that. But when you had your GM say like, well, yeah, I think there's a change with the core, and then like 10 seconds later, he's gone. Like he's just completely like gone from existence from the organization, or even suggesting that was not going to happen with Brad Treliving. Brad Treliving was brought in to make it work with the 4 guys who want to be here. So in that vein, I'm like, okay, none of these guys are going to move. So what do we pivot here? 11.5. That sounds like a ton of money, and it's a lot.
It is.
But but the alternative is you can't trade a guy when the team is competing at such a high level, and that'd be really hard to do. You can't let him you can't let him John Tavares you in the offseason. So they did the best they could do. And I think William Nylander may have added another couple $1 million with this performance. I think he might have just called and said the price went up and hung up. I think he might have just did that in the locker room. But I'll call it a thumbs up tentatively, but I gotta see where the other math goes to get on that defense, because I'm still with the defense. But I mean, again, one of the top players in the league this year is sticking around. It can't be a thumbs down.
No, and let me put it this way. I think $11 million is a lot of money, and I wish that it was going to be less. Having said that, I would rather repay or overpay William Nylander and pay him $11 million to be on my team than to watch him walk down to Florida and have to play against him for the next 8 years. You know what I mean?
Like, he'd go to Florida too.
I think about, he would go to another big city. Like, he's not going to St. Louis or Minnesota or San Jose.
Somewhere warm. I could see him being like, but
right?
I could see him winning a cup.
I mean, having said that, he's Swedish, so he probably likes the cold. But I don't know. Let's not speculate about where he wants to resign, because it sounds like the only place he wants to resign is Toronto, and it sounds like it's going to be a lot of money. It sounds like next year is going to be a struggle. But beyond that, the end of next year, we have Mitch Marner and John Tavares' contracts expiring. We have Morgan Rielly locked up on an ridiculously reasonable deal of $7.5 million for the next 7 years. And on top of that, next year will be a struggle. Sure. If the cap continues to go up, if it goes up what it's supposed to this year, and then even if it just goes up $2 million at the end of next season, not next season, but next season, I think the deal is worth it. Of course, that's assuming we don't have another, world-stopping pandemic, knock on wood. We are projecting that the cap is going to continue to go up for at least a couple of years, God willing. And the reason for that going up, it might be the reason that the Leafs are willing to roll the dice on this. Because I don't think another pandemic is going to happen again in the next couple of years, heaven forbid. But again, I would rather pay him and have him on my team than watch him walk to the Oilers or walk to Calgary or walk to Vancouver or to walk to Vegas. Walk to another team that is going to pay him, where he's going to have success and where he inevitably would end up winning a cup. I would rather have him stay and know that he is going to be on my team until he's 36. I don't want to play against this guy, man. And even though it's going to be a lot of money, we have to suffer for 1 year, and then we get a little bit of relief at that point. Because I imagine that when Tavares re-signs, because he's going to in Toronto when his contract expires at the end of next year, I imagine he's going to take a bit of a price drop, right? That's a reasonable assumption. So if you think about it in the context of at the end of that contract, he re-signs the contract that William Nylander was making this year and the cap goes up, well, then we're no worse for wear than we are right now, except for next year, which will be a struggle, fine. But even this year, I get everybody's argument of, the defense needs an upgrade, and I do think that it's not perfect, but Simone Benoit has been an unexpected surprise, and I imagine that if he continues to have the success, he'll want to stay, and it might be on a reasonable deal. And, we don't know what's going to happen with TJ Brody at the end of the season, but, he's come here, he's had some success, and I imagine he would want to stay too. Now, he's going to be, on the other side of 36 at that point, and that's fine, but, maybe he takes a lesser role. Giordano's probably not going to be back next season, just considering how old he is and how he's noticeably slowed down this year. Don't get me wrong, I think it'll be a lot, but shit, man, I don't see how you let him walk to another team to make what he's willing to make here.
Yeah, going to your point of where he'd definitely go to Vegas and take $8 million because there's no taxes, and we'd be so pissed. That's exactly what would happen. But the way I love the way we're talking, it's the way we talk about the Leafs is we'll take money from here, money from there. It kind of sounds like how we're when you make a really bad, you feel like you made a bad purchase. And you're I saved a lot of money on food here. I saved money. That's how I feel like we're justifying this. it's like, that's how I look at my own books.
Yeah.
I'm like, well, I didn't eat lunch for the last week. I don't, there you go. That's where the purchase went. So
Yeah.
that's where I see we're going here. But look, like you said too, like the past is the past for a reason. They could go into the playoffs and they could take it all this year. They could. Are they ready right now? I don't know. But it's hockey, like that's the thing. The point is you want to keep yourself in the dance. Like some teams, like, how hard it is getting to the playoffs isn't that easy, right? Like you see Ottawa stacking up talent and then all of a sudden they can't get in. Same with the Sabres, right? So you want to keep yourself in the dance because one of these, you never know. You could get to the postseason. Maybe they figure something out. Maybe some kind of happenstance and they make it all the way. But that's the thing. You want to give yourself a chance. You don't want to be a team that keeps missing the playoffs for 7 straight years because we've been there.
Yeah. Yeah. And think about what could have, the what if if you know me, then if you've ever met me, you know that I believe that the two most dangerous words in the English language are what if. Well, yeah. What if the Leafs make it to 2019 without even making the playoffs with Matthews? Does the contract situation look different? Sure. We can what if all day. Like, all we can focus on right now is what's happening this season. And right now it sounds like William Nylander is about to put pen to paper and that he is planning on being here for a long time. And at the end of the day, William Nylander is a better right wing than I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably like 95% of right wingers in the league. Like, just based on numbers alone. And this year he has played like a player that's earned that kind of raise. Now, is part of the question is he going to carry that consistency moving forward? Until this season, none of us really believed, if we're being totally honest with ourselves, none of us believed that he should earn more than 9.5 because he does go through these periods where he has these lackadaisical moments where he looks like his controller disconnects, where he looks disconnected from the game. That has not happened this year. And maybe, there is an argument to be made of, oh, well, it's a contract year, so of course he's playing that well. Okay, fair enough. But at the same time, if he can play like that and he knows that if we pay him, that he can play like that for 82 games and how solid he has been in the playoffs, because in the last couple of years, William Nylander has been one of the best players in the playoffs. He only gets better. And I will be goddamn if we have to lose one of our best playoff performers because we didn't want to pay him an extra $150 million. Like, is it an overpayment? Probably. But tough shit, that's life. Like, I would rather overpay William Nylander 11.5 than pay Jack Campbell $6 million a year.
You know what? Like, look, that was a big dodge bullet, right? Like, can you imagine if that was on your books right now? Whew, yeah, that would cause a ripple effect like you wouldn't believe. But to your point about contract years, and you'd hope so. You'd hope he comes in and keeps playing like Austin Matthews got paid and he's playing better than he ever has. Hopefully he's more like that and not like what we've seen in like the early 2000s where the blue and white syndrome, that was something that was coined back then with like the Muskoka Five, like those. That's when I was coming up watching it like as a kid, and I was like, that's all I heard. There was no positivity. It was like, this guy's contract is terrible. That's how I came up watching hockey. It was all about this guy's contract and this guy is mailing it in. This guy's got a no trade clause, because we've seen that a lot. So now these are much more talented, high-end players than, let's say, Jason Allison or Jason Blake or, gosh, I don't even know, like that era of the Leafs. So, I think it's going to be okay. Just, I want to see I'd love to see what Brad Treliving does on the back end, like how he can fit that in. I'm going to be very, very curious to see how that looks coming trade deadline for sure.
Yeah, like I would guess that if Brad Treliving could take a time machine to, the middle of August, he would walk up to William Nylander's agent and slide across the table a contract for $10 million a year for 8 years, because that's what was reported to have been his asking price over the summer. The Leafs didn't want to sign him in the summer, and now he's played so well that has been very gently carjacked up. So, man's earned it, man. And if he can play as well as we know he's able to, then he's earned it. That's the reality of it. So let's get to the press conference. Sure. If you are watching, please make sure you hit like and subscribe. If you're having a good time, go tell one of your buddies about Game Over, because I mean, listen, we got different people on basically every game. It's always a good time. We love having you here. We love having you as part of our community. So please make sure you hit like, make sure you hit subscribe, and if you could tell a buddy about our show, I would really appreciate it. So make sure you get your questions into the chat before we finish up here. So let's really quickly talk about the fact that William Nylander is going to be putting pen to paper, hopefully by the time we're back on Tuesday. I would love nothing more than to talk about a contract extension on Game Over on Tuesday. Like, wouldn't that just be, like, what a great way to start the year, man. Oh, gosh.
Yeah. I mean, that'd be good. I mean, that's... Until the next one, right? Until next year, when it's what's that happen with Mitch Marner?
Oh, that's God. That's what Fernanda Nascimento is asking in the chat. What is Marner going to cost us? Let's worry about that when we have to. I mean,
that's the thing.
I was if the Leafs lost this game, I actually did have a question. I was going to jokingly start talking about re-signing Mitch Marner and what that is going to cost. But like, we already have one contract we got to talk about. And we already dealt with another one this season in Austin Matthews, who signed an extension. Excellent point by Fernanda. Vote William Nylander to take him to the All-Star game. That is definitely something that we should be talking about. So, chat, who do you think on top of Austin Matthews, Fouad, who do you want to go to the All-Star game? Who do you want us to vote in? I mean, obviously, my vote is for William Nylander. I think most people are saying that. But I also think sneaky vote, Morgan Rielly. It could be the season where all of the Leafs alternative captains go to the All-Star game.
Yeah, I would say Nylander for sure. I mean, the All-Star voting is a little bit confusing. I always say this, and I hate this, and people disagree with me. I hate that they have to bring one from each team. I just don't think it's needed. Like, you're bringing this event to have the best of the best of the best. If the best of the best play on a couple of teams, then why are you leaving some people off? I mean, I'm sure these guys want to go on vacation. I don't think many of them really want to come to Toronto in February to go to the All-Star game. I mean, like Oliver Bjorkstrand, was it like where he's just like, oh, great, I have to work on my vacation. But
I think that Bjorkstrand initially thought that he was being traded.
Oh,
like if you watch that video with that context of, oh, you might need to book a flight to Toronto, like he might not have had the immediate thought of the All-Star game.
Oh God, it's cold. It snows there. Not where Seattle doesn't snow. It snows there.
Yeah.
No, but my point is, it's like I feel like the All-Star should be like, it should be a snapshot of like who is the best that season. And when you got like Boone Jenner just in there, and I'm like, that doesn't make no sense to me. I don't know. That's my hot take. I'll stand on that one. It is an All-Star game. It's an All-Star game too, so I can't really like give too much energy to it. It's an All-Star game, but I think it's silly.
I mean, I think most hockey fans have an opinion to some degree that there are teams that probably don't really have anybody that's like a great contender to send. Like, I can't, like, Thomas Hertl's getting in over William Nylander, and William Nylander is far and away like the more productive player, especially this year. But at the same time, like, what ends up happening is you have teams where because they don't have like a bona fide star. Like, the reality is not every team has that. Some teams are built as like a sum of their parts. Like, I'm not gonna lie, I actually mentioned this into the Game Over Toronto group chat. I am really excited about the fact that Matthew Barzal is going to have a jersey that says Toronto on, and I can't wait to screen cap that. And the next time that the Islanders play Toronto, I'm just going to tweet that. And then I feel like the Flaming Elmo meme where I'm like, I'm just going to sit and play and we're just going to play in the mud, man. I'm so jazzed about it.
You have some sort of beef with Long Island. You got something. You and Long Island got something there. Like, I'm like, there's some beef.
Yeah. I really like beating them. I think you know what it is? Normally I'm somebody that really likes to take the high road, but if someone takes the low road long enough, I'll rappel off that and run on the low road. I'm okay with that.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. Fair enough.
It looks like a lot of the chat is agreeing with us that they want Willian, because that would be great.
I mean, storyline wise, it's probably the best. I mean, Marner's been great, but more under the radar this season. He's been like, there's only so much oxygen for everyone, so I think that Nylander's story is the better one. And, you know, that's why they want to get the contract extension done right now. Like, make no mistake. MLSC would not have William Nylander sitting there at a press conference in their building at the All-Star game, and people asking him about your contract. There's no way MLSE is going to do that. So that's why they're gonna bite the bullet and get that thing done way before the All-Star game.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that especially if he does re-sign a contract extension, I think that there's no way that that the NHL doesn't vote him in. Luke Venables, what's up, Luke? Welcome back, buddy. How would you select the All-Stars that doesn't favor the bigger fan bases? You know what? I actually think that the All-Star game should be more voted by fans. Like, I don't think that the NHL should decide every year which player from each team is going. I think it should be up to the fans of that franchise to decide which players go. Like, from the get-go, as well as the additional players, just based on fan voting. But again, like, you would have to put a limit on, like, okay, the maximum that you could do is, like, 2 players from each team. So that teams like Toronto, which have a significantly higher proportionate of the fan base of NHL games, is, you know, bigger teams like the Montreal Canadiens, the Rangers, the Kings, the Leafs, Boston, all of those teams, which have a very widespread fan base, you would have to make it because, like, but at the same time, like, I hate that I have to talk about Boston. David Pastrnak deserves to go. So does Brad Marchand.
So absolutely.
I hate that, but it's true.
You know what I like? I mean, look, I'm a big basketball fan too, so but I like their system. Like, I'll call out bad systems, but what their system is, and I like it for hockey, would be like perhaps like a certain amount of guys that are voted in by the fans, and then you get like a certain amount voted in by the coaches or like the head coaches or like some kind of like within the league. That's kind of what they do there, and I think that would make sense. I'd be more fair, but like having one from each team is just. I get it. Like, it's like, oh, we have to represent everyone, but that's like participation medal type stuff. Like, this is the all-star game. Like, if you don't have stars, you can't send them to the all-star game.
Yeah.
That's just the long and short of it.
Do not pass go. Do not collect $200.
No all-star game for you.
Very quickly, I want to give out a huge shout out to PWHL Toronto for winning their first game last night against New York.
Let's go.
It was such a good game, man. Like, I was so stressed out watching the game on New Year's Day when they didn't score. It felt like we were all like sort of hoping it wasn't going to become a trend. And then Sarah Nurse at the first intermission was talking about, we had so much pressure. It really feels like we're going to break through. And lo and behold, they did. Emma Malte getting the first for Toronto. Spooner getting the first one for Toronto, sorry. And then Emma Malte getting the first of the power play killer jailbreak goals. I'm not going to lie, man. Like, if you didn't watch the game, first of all, be better. Second of all, go back and watch it because it's on YouTube and there's no actual excuse for you to not watch it because it's good hockey, man. Like, It's physical, it's fast, they're so skilled. It's so awesome. It's so good. And watching Toronto get that jailbreak goal the other night and having that player come out of the box was like, oh, I wish so badly that the league would implement that because that's like such a game changer. No pun intended. It's a game changer of a rule to have it so that if you score shorthanded, that you get your person out of the box.
Yes,
like
I love that.
Oh,
you know what? And look, first of all, like congratulations to the PWHL
absolutely
because they're pulling in numbers right now, and I love it. And like that,
they're crushing it. The haters are in fucking shambles, and I love it. Like
totally
watching all these people that have been online for forever talking about how no one cares about women's hockey. If you Google the numbers from last week of the number of people that watched all those games, like you very clearly are in the wrong. So take your punches.
It's all about how you market it too,
yep,
right?
Take the medicine, take the fact that you are wrong, and just accept the fact that it's good fucking hockey and it's a great product and it's so much fun to watch and I can't wait to go to a game this season even though they're sold out. Like I'm probably going to end up like driving my ass to Minnesota to go see a game or Ottawa or Montreal because
Ottawa's a little closer. but
I don't want to discriminate. You know what I mean?
Totally. I think for them like they should lean into more like wackier rules. I think that will help them too, like where it's like, okay, like let's separate ourselves from the NHL. I think that will help if you implement something that's more imaginative than the NHL ever would, like because that will get more eyeballs on it too. But yeah, like it's the fact it was never like people. Some people didn't care. It's or like the haters definitely were wrong there. It's just like you got to present a product that makes sense. And the fact that they started small with with 6 teams is was a smart idea too. And
Yep.
I definitely like to see what's going on there for sure.
Yeah, and it's only the first season. It is a shortened season. And we all know that other teams are already clamoring to get a team of their own. And just based on the reaction of how buzzing each of those buildings is, again, regardless of what city it's in, the crowd is there, the crowd is excited, and it's people that really want to be there. And it's so good for the sport as a whole, and it's such an awesome thing to see so much success happening and the players to be so excited. And, you know, I can't say enough good things about it. Like, I'm so jazzed for every single player, regardless of what city they play for, because every single one of them is happy to be there. There was actually, I know we're talking about Game Over Toronto. I guess it still kind of is Game Over Toronto. It was actually funny, the game last night against New York. At one point, one of the New York players actually like went up to the goaltender and was like, "You okay?" Because outside of like, you know, playing the actual games, they're all like friends with each other. So I'm so excited that we get to see these unbelievable athletes more than once a year. Like outside of like, you know, the World Championship. It's so good to have good, consistent women's hockey on the screen. Oh, and if you haven't watched it again, please go watch it. It's an awesome game. It's an awesome time. And hopefully we get out to a game at some point this year.
We need logos though. Hopefully next season we see some team logos, some team mascots.
Yep. That's all supposed to happen. Yep. And I'm excited to rock one of the OG Toronto jerseys, like the crossband, and later on down the line for that to be the original jersey that came out. Like, I'm just so excited for each part of it. It's such an awesome thing to be a part of.
Totally.
So yeah. Great job, girls. Let's keep moving forward. Let's keep moving forward with the Leafs as well. Do you have anything else you want to talk about here, buddy, or should we wrap it up?
Well, I guess we wrap it up here. We have the Sharks next game, the weirdest home and home I've ever seen. Let's see what they do. I want to see if they can keep this trend of hammering teams they should hammer completely. Like, especially Sharks at home. Like, you gotta. I want to see a beatdown. None of this. No going down 5-0 and then coming back 5-0 like they did with Columbus. Like, no. I want to see this be a trend where they can take care of business.
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. So let's see if they do that for sure.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that was a pretty clean, concise win. Not a lot of shenanigans.
The road tripper couldn't have gone any better. In reality.
I guess so, yeah.
You know?
I guess so.
So let's wrap it up there. If you have been here the whole time, if you have been listening, maybe you're on your way to work on Monday morning or what have you, thank you for being here with us. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Thank you for being down in the chat. We've loved having you here today. Make sure you do check out the PWHL when they play next. I believe they play on Tuesday. And then we are going to be back on Tuesday evening for the home game against the Sharks. We will see if Hildebeest makes his debut or if Jonesy is going to go for 4 games in 4 games. Thank you for watching Game Over. Make sure you follow us on Twitter. You can find me on Lauren in the 6. Fouad, where can everybody find you?
Yes, find me on Fouad_sports.
Yes, and make sure you follow SDPN. Make sure you like and subscribe. Make sure you put your votes out on Twitter, on YouTube, on everything else for our guy William Nylander and Morgan Riley. We will see you on Tuesday night, everybody.
Game over!